In this video, I'm going to talk about how to write MIDS motivation letter, or the motivation letter for Masters of International Dispute Settlement in Geneva, Switzerland. A few years ago, I applied to MIDS and I was admitted with a full scholarship. I have a detailed blog post about it. I'm going to link it down below. In this video, I would like to share with you my strategy for a motivation letter, and I hope it's going to be helpful for you if you're considering the same path. If we look at the MIDS website, it gives quite thorough instructions about what they want to see in a motivation letter. Specifically, they want you to talk about your interest in dispute settlement, your contribution to the MIDS community, what has attracted you in the MIDS program, and your plans for the future. I'm going to show you how I addressed these requirements. Let's dive in. Here it is. I would like to show you how I structured my MIDS motivation letter. I am not going to show you the actual motivation letter because I'm quite embarrassed of it. It's old and I am a much better writer now. I have 3 parts to my MIDS motivation letter, and I usually don't title sections of my motivation letters or personal statements, but for this one I did because I thought it worked well with what the MIDS website said they wanted to see. The first section was why dispute resolution, second was why MIDS, and the third one was what's next and plans for the future. In my why dispute resolution section, it talked about how my interest in arbitration began. For me, it happened when I participated in the Concours Charousseau, which is a French moot court competition. What is interesting about it is that it's usually dedicated to public international law, but the year I took part, it was about investment law. Frankly speaking, I had more to show at that stage of my life and professional development. For instance, other arbitration-related experiences I had on my CV were my work at a law firm. I worked at a dispute resolution department. One of the things that I really liked doing was that I contributed to the conflict of interest rules we developed for a local arbitration institution. At another firm, I worked with an arbitrator on a case concerning the arbitrability of corporate disputes. That was, from the standpoint of national arbitration law, very important because for most of history, corporate disputes were considered to be not arbitrable. I also had an internship at the Association for International Arbitration in Brussels. I organized an arbitration conference, very interesting, related to antitrust issues and their arbitrability. And I've also written my first publications there, my first publications on arbitration. Finally, I attended the Paris arbitration community, which was also definitely a highlight of my professional life. I had all of those things, but I didn't use them in a motivation letter. I only used them in court, partly because it was subjectively the most important one, the most meaningful, partly because I did not have a process for analyzing my background and generating ideas and selecting from them. I didn't have that process. I only developed it after I applied for MIDS. And as you see, it didn't hinder me, but when you are working on your motivation letters, I strongly recommend that you really engage with your background and see what's there in mind as much as possible, and then decide. Then section about why MIDS. Here I had a multi-part argument that first talked about the program's curriculum that attracted me. Specifically, I talked about how MIDS combined teaching the substantive knowledge of arbitration and soft skills that pretty much every arbitration lawyer needs. I also talked about diverse educational methods that provided more access to the faculty. What I meant here was as follows. I studied for my first law degree at the Lomonosov Moscow State University. And as the #1 law faculty in the country, it was a huge university. We had 500 people who were accepted to the Faculty of Law each year, and for lectures we were split into two groups. We had seminars for groups of 25 people, but overall, you didn't get that much attention from professors. You had to compete for it. What I saw in MIDS was that it was this very hand-selected group of around 40 individuals, 40 students, and they had all those workshops and seminars tailored for students to truly absorb the knowledge and build connections with the faculty. When I was writing this motivation letter, it felt really important, and that's why I highlighted it here. Finally, I talked about how I had gaps in my knowledge, specifically related to international arbitration, and I hoped that MIDS would help me fill those gaps. Part number 3, it's about what's next or plans for the future. That part was the shortest. I talked about 2 things. I talked about my plans for joining an arbitration institution and willingness to remain an academic. Interestingly enough, when I got that admission from MIDS with a full scholarship, I declined it because I thought there should be more to life than arbitration. I wanted to explore something different. And that's why I reapplied to the US. But those 2 things are precisely the things that I ended up doing after my LL.M. And they turned out to be true. Something I'd like to point out is that when you are writing about your plans, it's important to be clear, and it's important to truly identify what is that you're most likely to do after your LL.M. It's going to help the admissions committee help you. But you don't need to have your entire life figured out. No one's going to hold you to your motivation letter. And it's very, very likely that once you get into the program, you will meet all those new people. You will be exposed to so many new ideas. Your goals are very likely to change. What you need to do for the motivation letter is to talk in a clear fashion about what is it that you are most likely to do after. That's my MIDS motivation letter. I hope it's been helpful, and I wish you best of luck.